I'm Shivaun McCloud here again, and I am being joined with David Yurovchak, and we are going to talk today about some home buying programs here in Las Vegas.
Hi, Shivaun. Thank you for having me. It's a blessing to be able to come into an office again and being able to be face to face. So I'm very happy to be here with the Hyde Group at Simply Vegas. I just want to talk about a couple different things in reference to mortgage, and just a lot of people in general just don't know what they don't know. So the best thing that we can do is have you call somebody like Shivaun on the Hyde Group and be able to just ask some basic questions, and then she can point you in a direction that makes sense to come to myself or somebody on my team to where we can answer the proper questions. People usually are just really nervous, or they're just scared because they don't think they are ready, and they might be really ready. They might have the right FICO score. They might have enough money in the bank. They might qualify for down payment assistance. There's all different kinds of things that are out there, but people just don't know until you ask. So all we can do is put the information out. You can go to our websites. Mine is Yurovchak team at guildmortgage.net is my email. And then you can Google me at David Yurovchak. We'll make sure we put it in the information. It's a crazy last name. We'll make sure we spell it right. And there's a lot of information on there, just the basics, but it's the easiest thing to do is just pick up the phone. I'm very old school. I've been doing this about 17, 18 years now, that I like just being able to get the information out, and everybody's situation is so unique. So until we have that conversation, very similar to what we did with Shivaun, they just didn't know until they knew, right? We keep talking about that. Until we pick up the phone and we ask the right questions, and it's not a long process. We can ask the right ones right away, and you don't feel like you're being interrogated. You just know that you're getting the education. So we're here to try to teach you as teachers in getting that information out, and just knowing that the information is easy to get to, and all you got to do is do a phone call, and it's really fast.
That's absolutely true, and that was our experience in home buying for my husband and myself. We just didn't know, and I think one of the things that David talked about was just making the phone call, and just even talking about financing for a home, especially for us teachers. We're very secure with what we know in terms of curriculum and kids and things of that sort, but it is very daunting to embark on something to do financially, especially if you're not exactly happy with your finances. You feel like, I don't want to hear the word no, or that you're not ready, or that I have a lot of work that I need to do, and that just isn't always the case. So one of the things that David and his team was really helpful with us was giving us a lot of information on different programs. One of the programs, or some of the programs that they have, are down payment assistance. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those?
Yeah, there's actually a couple different ones specifically in Clark County that a lot of people have access to, but there's even one in particular that's geared towards teachers, and it's a reduced interest rate. So if interest rates hypothetically are hovering around 3%, just as an example, that interest rate for a teacher potentially is going to be about 2.625 or 2.75 for a 30-year fixed mortgage. So those are things that we would go over in advance to make sure we set the right expectation, like we did with Shivaun and her husband, and making sure that they understood what the different programs meant and how that payment works out, and exactly what it meant to come in with cash to close, or if they were going to get some help. Also too, with the down payment assistance, there's income limits, but the one on this one in particular is up to $105,000 as a family. So if it's a husband and wife, for example, or a couple that are going to be living in the house together, then we can do that up to that income. And there's also other ways that we might be able to get creative. Again, with us just asking the right questions and having that phone call like we just talked about, and being able to point somebody like yourself in the right direction and saying, okay, yes, you do qualify for $7,500 as down payment assistance, and you get the interest rate of this, and it's a 30-year fix that's going to be solidified and protected for a really long period of time. I know Shivaun had talked about this before, is with renting and then versus purchasing, the rental market is going to keep creeping up over and over and over and over, especially with a lot more people coming to Las Vegas in particular. In our market, there's so many others, and very similar to what you guys do, is so many people can work remotely now. And in Vegas and Arizona and California and some other pockets of town or pockets of the country are being flooded by people that are coming in, which is a really good thing for our local economy. For somebody that might want to list their home, the prices are going up a little bit at a time. Not anything scary, which is good, and they're still extremely affordable. But it's creating a demand because people can plug in from anywhere, from a couch or a new house that has a home office that they didn't have before, or whatever those circumstances are, that Shivaun will be an expert in that field to point somebody in that direction, saying, hey, I know you live in Washington State, I know you live in Texas now, come to Clark County School District, be a teacher here, plug in, or they might live literally somewhere else and just want to buy a second home here. So those are different opportunities that might not necessarily be tied specifically to down payment assistance. But again, until we have that conversation and walk through it, just know that there are different possibilities and different opportunities that are out there, especially here in Southern Nevada. And that's where I think is going to be a really good thing for our market, and specifically for people that can get in sooner rather than later, because interest rates are still so low right now. It's affordable because of the price point that we're at. We're not in the pockets of the country like a San Francisco or a Seattle or Hawaii, or that are really considered high cost. It's still extremely affordable here. So if you can get down payment assistance, great. And then there's other avenues that it might not make sense. And that's, again, just based on a quick conversation and letting you as the consumer know exactly what's going to be real. And then we give you the path to be able to get there.
One of the things that I think I really appreciated with Guild Mortgage is they were so very knowledgeable of different programs that they really worked whatever magic they could to try to fit us in. Like, well, does this work and how does that work? Because there are so many programs, there's no possible way that a regular layperson could say, oh yeah, this is what I want or that is what I want. The other piece is that in being out here in Las Vegas and having been a renter myself, the rental market is ludicrous at best. There's absolutely no place to rent, and when you find them, there are 20 applications in for people to rent. And what we realized is that after coming up with your security deposit, your first month's rent, and all the expenses for moving, it's very comparable to actually being able to purchase a home. Mm-hmm. And our mortgage was just very, very slightly more than what our rental property and our rent was there. And now, after being in our home for a year, we're able to refinance and be able to hopefully get that down lower. So, in your opinion, I know that you talked about different pockets of the country being extremely expensive. I'm from Southern California, which is beyond out of this world right now. It is uncanny, but I do have friends that have already purchased have homes, and have a lot of equity. So in your opinion, would you say that the Vegas market and what we have going on here is a great way for them to be able to invest that equity possibly in purchasing a second home here?
I do. So there's different programs that are out there that people, if they don't have a lot of liquid funds, like in a checking or savings or retirement or something like that, where you can actually tap into an existing property if they don't want to sell it. This is a little off topic from the teacher side of it, but we have a thing called a bridge loan. And a bridge loan is where we tap into a little bit of the equity and be able to use it on a house here, but that's more specifically if they're actually relocating. If they're going to use it as a true second home, then we have to figure out how we can maybe take some money out of that one as a cash out refinance, and then utilize that for the down payment on the new house. So again, we want to make it as linear as possible, make it as simple as possible, break it down so that it's X and Y, and it makes the consumer feel comfortable that they're making a really good decision, and they know that they're not jumping off the cliff without a parachute first, and that they're financially set, and that they're not going to have any bad surprises. I also think that because of the market in general is very, very stable compared to what it was back in 2006, 7, 8, specifically because of the programs that we're doing now. Again, I've been doing this about 17, 18 years, and we saw a big change in 2009 until now, where everything that we've done in our world, and most mortgage companies have done, has been a 30-year fixed mortgage, where everything is extremely stable, and people have a ton of equity in their property. So I get asked all the time, what do you think the market is going to do? What do you think the future holds? And obviously nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. But if we look back on history, we were doing, again, crazy loans, and consumers knew what those loans were, and real estate agents were doing it as well. And it's a collective effort from everybody, right? But those programs, thank goodness, don't exist anymore, where they were adjustable loans, there was no money down, the interest rates were even higher. There was all different kinds of things that weren't regulated. So now, like you and your husband, we collect pay stubs and bank statements, and we set the right expectation to know that we're not setting somebody up to fail. So since the mortgage industry has done that for the last 12, 13 years, it has set up people for success and getting that generational wealth that I know you've been blessed with this last year with the equity that you've gotten in your house, which is huge. And people, again, that bought even prior to that is in a good spot. But I still think even going forward, I still think that Vegas is still in its infancy of growing. And I'm originally from the Seattle area, and nobody really ever lives in Seattle. We all lived outside of Seattle, right? So the cost of living in that particular place, if you can get in there, if somebody got in there 25, 30, 35 years ago in Seattle, and they would be probably a multimillionaire just because of the fact that they're in the center of the city. So with the Raiders coming and the Knights doing well and a potential baseball stadium and Google and Amazon and all these other places that are industries that are coming to Las Vegas, I still think we are in the infancy of our equity position, and the fact that people are sitting on equity and good loans is giving our market a lot of stability compared to other places across the country that really never saw a waiver in prices. Where even back to 2009 till now, there was never ever a drop, where we had a dramatic dip here specifically, and it's gone up, and I still don't even think we're at the peak of the peak, or we're really close to even what we were. So there's so much more room for growth, and I think it's a really good thing for our local economy here.
That sounds great. I'm really glad that you brought up the new practices that you've had or the industry has had for the last 12 years, because I myself was a victim of those predatory loans. Purchased a home, and then after 2 years, I was expected to have this giant balloon payment, and my note was going to go up to triple what it was, and I ended up having to walk away from my home. So I know that as a teacher, and teachers and educators are very near and dear to my heart. We work very hard, but we don't make a ton of money. And just like you mentioned, if you're not in the heart of these environments and you did not purchase 30 years ago, sometimes you feel like I'm just never going to catch up, or I'm never going to have it. And I do understand that here in Vegas, it's an awesome opportunity, because this is the ground floor to get in on, so that in 20 years or in 30 years, when Vegas is even bigger than what it is today, that we will have a stake into this environment. So as we close out, is there any final thoughts that you have that you would like to leave us with? I mean, I really want to encourage everyone to reach out, to make the call. You can definitely reach me at Shivaun@HydeRealty.com. And we are here at Simply Vegas here in Las Vegas. So anytime you see anything to do with me, and I'm sure that my contact information is also included in this video, but any last thoughts about encouraging that person who's I just don't know?
Right. No, I think the best thing, especially in the education platform and having that as a career, most of the industry that you're in are salary based. And what we look at as a lender, so Guild Mortgage is the bank, and then we can also broker if we need to, but most of the stuff we do keep in-house, is we want to look for something that is stable or solidified, and we can project going forward. So again, we don't know what the market's going to do necessarily, but we also don't know what somebody's career is going to be 5, 10, 30 years from now. But if we can see a pattern, and we see that they're in education, and we can see that in that education platform that they have step increases the longer that they stay in it, or depending on their education level, there's different things in there that we can set as the proper expectations. And if we have 2 people on the loan, it makes it easier for qualifications. But even an individual by themselves can also still qualify. So we want to educate on that and go through just very basic math. If somebody, let's say they make $4,000 a month, just for argument's sake, they technically can have up to $2,000 in monthly debt. We don't always recommend that, but mathematically, there's ways to make it make sense. So we might put them into a mortgage that's $1,200 or $1,500 or $1,600, depending on what their other debts are. So again, you want to reach out to Shivaun and the Hyde Group, and making sure that they know that you're interested, and then they can guide you to somebody like myself, that we can have that conversation and just play with basic math first, make it really simple. Everything that we do in advance for like a pre-qualification is free. So we want to invest in you. Shivaun and the team want to invest in you. Nobody wins unless you actually close on a house. So if we can do the right thing and do the right steps, whether that's tomorrow, 6 months, 9 months from now, whatever it is, if we can do that and lay the groundwork, I think that's the best way to start that education.
Absolutely. And what you said just made me think of 2 final thoughts. One thing is that I'm married, and even though both people are not always ready, someone's credit is better than another, there are also ways to work around that as well, that maybe there's one person that qualifies for the loan, maybe not both. And that's definitely, David and his team are excellent with those things as well. And in terms of talking about teachers, we know that teachers are not the only people who work for schools or school districts. So even if you work for a school, there are other options as well for you. So we don't want you to feel that it's exclusively for teachers if you're in the classroom in front of students. It is also other opportunities out there for others as well. So thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate your time, David.
Yeah, thank you for having me today.
I really appreciate it. Thanks.
All right.